Now we need to think about our spacers. Okay, here we have wheelbase shims. Front 0, rear 2 millimeter. One large, one small. So that would push our wheelbase. It would basically, that pushes the axles forward, and so the spacers would be back here. That shortens the wheelbase. Let's see where that is on the sheet, because it might be better to stretch it out, have a slightly longer wheelbase. Longer wheelbase means you get a little, it's a little more controllable, better straight line performance. Okay, just to show you how this works. Okay. The wheelbase is here and here. This is our rear arm. This is our front arm. This is the adjustment at that we're working on right now, closest to the middle. And then our outer hub moving left or right, or centering it. So on this kit build, he's got one on either side to center the hub, and on this he's got two on the rearward side, shortening the wheelbase, which is what they have recommended, so I'll go ahead and do that. I think he's got 2 millimeters back there. Let's see if 2 millimeters fits. So he's got 2 and 1 and 1. Yeah, no jiggle, just right. I'm gonna go with that. So on my sheet, oops, let that get away. Okay, for situations like this, one good thing to do is tap the holes a little bit. You don't have to do it a long ways, but definitely get them started. And I might actually have titanium for these. I'm gonna have to check that again. No, I'm just going to go ahead and stick with these. Now, barring other things that might be in the way, taking off the rear diff hatch is 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Pull that away, pull out the diff. So making fluid changes is going to be exceptionally easy on this car, which is really nice that they've done it that way. Also, this whole assembly attaches to the chassis with 4 screws. That's it. I like the way they've got the suspension. Everything is basically standalone. Once you put a shock mount on here and you have your 2 shocks in place, this whole rear suspension and diff can come off. Now there's probably a center brace or something that's going to provide some stiffening, but again, a very minimum number of items to get that put together. Just looking this over one more time, make sure I didn't leave anything out. Okay, good. So now it's time for bag F. See, now these come off easy, unlike the arms. This is a little more brittle. Always check over any parts trees before you toss them. Make sure that you didn't leave something on the tree. Okay, here we have some adjustments. Wanted to show you what we got here. Okay, now these guys right here go one on either side of our hub, and those are going to provide our link location. Now, we can adjust the height of those by either having them upside down or right side up, and because you can see the holes are slightly lower. That'll also give you inboard and outboard options as well. Now you have these go through the bottom, and that is our pivot point for our rear hub. And we have 4 pairs where the hole is in the center, and those are number 2s, and we have 4 pair where it's off center, and depending on whether you have those position them with the hole high or the hole low, you are adjusting where that hub is going to be in relationship to the pivot. We also have two holes in our pivot which can widen or narrow the track on the car. So all things you can tune, and where we put them is going to have a potentially dramatic effect on how the car handles in one direction or another, or one way or another. So let's take a look at the sheet that I'm building from and see where those are set up. Okay, so this guy has his at the higher roll center. Let me just check the other build sheet for comparison, and he's got it the exact opposite. So that's going to be interesting. Probably try it both ways at one time or another and see what how the change affects the vehicle. That's one thing you should really try to do is, you know, spend a day or two at the track and just switch things around one item at a time. Like, don't change 5 things, change the roll center from low to high and see how the car handles differently, you know, after you've made that change. And then do something else and, you know, kind of make mental note, preferably write stuff down. You know, roll center at rear hub makes the car do this versus that. So that way you've got that information to fall back on. And I hate it when I've got 2 build sheets and they're opposite on something as dramatic as roll center. So it's like, okay. And worse yet, the stock build says put it in the center. So I've got 3 sources and 3 choices, and they're all different. So since I'm following everything else about this build, I'm going to follow the roll center. So I'm going to go ahead and push these in low. And there's the last low. Okay, now this is where it's time to start boxing things up. I'm going to go ahead and take these sway bars and put them in the box along with those 2 pills. Might as well pull these out of the bag as well. And I'm going to put the diff parts together. And I'll put the shock parts together, and there will undoubtedly be other shock parts later. And then all of these will get cut and put in that compartment there. And I am going to mark on my sheet that I am going with the high roll center. I think part of that is this setup is lowering the chassis because of the smooth track conditions. This would be a good thing to do if you were planning to run carpet, possibly. Not necessarily, but there's other ways to compensate. There's other ways to lower the axle height, things of that nature. So let's, as long as we're at this spot, let's get these bearings in. Is there a spacer in the middle? No, doesn't look like it. Okay. And we should kind of get an orientation on which direction that goes. Okay, so this side here with the angle, that's rearward. Okay, and for these pieces right here, those are here on our setup sheet. So he's got the up and the middle C. So how we would do that is, okay. Okay, we have two steel washers there, and we need two lock nuts. One nice thing about this setup is you never have to worry about tearing one of these loose. It is not coming off. Just making sure I've got these going in the right directions. I think these are 5.5 millimeter. Correct. So that's that side. You don't need to over tighten these. You've got a lock nut, so it's never going to come loose on you. And you don't want to like try to crush this plastic. Just get it down snug, tight, and leave it at that. I'm sorry, I was mistaken about there being two locations for the rear swing arm. There's only one, and there's a, it looks like a second hole, but it's just a retaining screw. So again, to our rear location is going to be 1 and 1. I'm talking about the spacers. This is a 3 millimeter hole, so use a 3 millimeter reamer on it. The other one is a 4 millimeter. That's the inner one is a 4.5 millimeter. Now you can get these individually. These reamers, I prefer Dynamites. You can get them on Amazon. The size is located on the rear here for you, conveniently. I've found that between all the kits I've done, 3.5, 4mm, and 3mm are the sizes I use. That pretty much covers every kit I've ever needed to use one for. Okay, they're doing 2 and 2, or half and a half and a 1 on either side. I think that's a little tight. I'm going to try doing 1 and a 0.5. Thing with these plastic washers, they're not always perfectly molded. You just can't get that kind of precision out of plastic. Might be better at some point to try switching these for aluminum. I think what I'm going to have to do is go with their layout here and of 2mm, 2 halves and a 1, and just let them wear in a little bit. So if they're tight at first, I'll just have to go with it. Okay, now that that pin is in place, there are 2 little screws, and it'll go in and just cover part of the hole for the pin to keep the pin from escaping. See, that's all. Just covers the edge of the pin, keeps it from getting out. Okay, that's good. Okay, time to do the axles. There we go. Now this type of axle, you don't need any grub screw or means of anchoring that pin. Once you slide this into the hub, the bearing itself is going to provide that lock. So we can go ahead and slide this in. To not get grease on this grub screw, you want this to be able to lock. So now we take another pin, position that horizontally, center the pin, put the hex over top of that pin, locking it in place. And let's tighten it down. Very nice setup. Minimum number of parts. And you never have to worry about that hex dropping off, like when you pull a wheel off. If the wheel has gotten a little stuck to it, it's not going to take the hex with it. It's going to leave it on here. Your axle isn't going to go anywhere. Go ahead and grease up the cup. This is a high wear item, and so you want to be liberal with the grease. Make sure the hole is perpendicular. That makes it a lot easier to get this axle assembled. Doesn't matter which of these holes you use that go around the side of the cup. There we go. Make sure that it's centered, the pin. It'll stay centered. The bearing will do that for you. There we go. Oops. Okay. Made a mistake. This is why you have to double check, triple check. Especially certain parts, the orientation of these hubs. I was looking at this drawing right here to try to orient this. With this being the rear of the car, I've got it pointed in that direction, but I have my ball links in the wrong place. They need to be on this side. So not a big deal, but could have been more work, you know, if I had the hubs misaligned. So fortunately, it's just the ball links. Don't worry about the axles flopping around. Until you get shocks on here, they are going to do that. Or at least until we get the linkages for camber link. So that's all checked off. Time to build a couple links. I have a very specific way that I do all of my linkages. There's a little mark here, and that tells you which direction the twist is. So in other words, if you are looking at this, when you rotate this way, you're tightening both ends together. When you rotate the other way, you're spreading them apart. So you should always build your links so that the hatch points in the same direction. That way, all of your links adjust the same way. To tighten them, you rotate rear to front. To loosen front to rear, you do that on all of your linkages, steering linkages, camber linkages, rear camber links, and that way everything is the same. Everything is easy to adjust, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't even have to think about it very hard to always know what's where. So these are symmetrical in every way. You don't have to have some weird bend to them. Now this is where I like to use some ballistics. Also, let me see what size this is. Okay, great. That's a 4mm. I rub some ballistics on the threads. It really helps these screw in. Now, you can measure yours out to the specified value there, but I never bother with that. What I make sure is that I've got the same amount of threads at either end. That way I know that they're equidistant from each other, and I can get the maximum amount of adjustment. The reason I don't bother trying to get an exact measurement is because that is not going to be what you need. Ultimately, you are going to tune that link to give the right amount of rear camber, and that is a variable depending on where you've located your ball links and just the car itself, any variances in build. So trying to get the right tune from something as arbitrary as, 43.5 millimeters, it's not going to be 43.5 millimeters. They do it to give you a ballpark. I don't know why they try to make it so exact, like 43, like that half millimeter, really. I don't think you're gonna need that half millimeter. Plus, once I get this snapped on, I can adjust this much more easily by turning from the center instead of trying to twist these eyelets on. Some manufacturers recommend that you use a little bit of black grease on the threads or inside the end of the ball cup. A lot of people use chapstick or Blistick. I prefer to go that way. I think the grease is a little too much lubricant, but it's up to you. Whatever works. Okay, so where are they linking that? Okay, on the build I am using, he is using the bottommost hole. Let's see where this attaches. So this goes on the rear, like that. And this is going to go in between, like that. Like so. And we are going to need that's odd. A pair of 14s and a pair of 25s, but these don't look like 25s. I mean, they don't fit the drawing at all. Let me see what I've got in the way of titanium. Well, I've got titanium 26s. And I've got titanium 14s. Those 14s are a little long for this hole. They're actually sticking out the other side. I'm going to go ahead and swap those for 12s. There. And you see this right here? The other side here isn't even tightened fully. This one's easily 2 millimeters out. Okay, not even slightly correct there on the 14s. Or the 24s, excuse me. Okay, here's a couple button head 24s. Wow. That's insane. Okay. Just doing the shock mount locations. Okay, there is our rear suspension. There's our sway bar in action. Very nice. But this is all done with the exception of our shock absorbers. So I'm going to go ahead and pause up because it's on 4:30 in the morning and I'm beat. So I will be picking this up tomorrow with bag G, where we will be doing our front suspension.